Hello and welcome to the Smart RV Podcast. I'm John Vanek, joined by my buddy and friend and fellow RV tech, Joe Symmes in Gulfport, Mississippi. How you doing today, Joe?
Hey, good morning, John. Doing great down here. Starting to get a little chilly, but that's good. That tells us that summer is over.
Hey, there you go. Well, it's getting cold here. Our lows now are in the mid-20s this week, and we're getting into winter. But that also means that it's holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the other holidays in December. Create an opportunity for family and friends to come and either stay with us in our RVs as a kind of an extra, guest house, guest room, something like that. Or they're bringing their own RVs, but instead of parking at an RV park with all of the standard hookups of 50 and 30 amps and sewage and everything else, they're plugging in next to the house. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, right?
Yeah, exactly. One of my one of the wife and I's big original reasons for getting an RV was for this reason. We wanted to be able to go and visit family and friends, and the nice kind of a compromise in between. We didn't necessarily have to stay in a hotel. Sometimes they're far away, but we didn't have to take up the guest room and be a encumbered house guest for very long. Nice thing, nice thing about being able to retreat to your own abode in the driveway there is you can make a 2 or 3 day stay very enjoyable rather than let's get the relatives out of here kind of situation.
It does open up kind of the environment, right? And or it allows big families to have even more people staying, again, without having to use hotels and motels and things like that. So you mentioned, parking in the driveway. Is that one of the first concerns you have? Because you don't have the same amount of room typically in a residential driveway that you might have in an RV park.
Yeah, exactly, John. So, first consideration, having done this several times, a lot of our longtime listeners will know retired military, and that involved lots of moves around the U.S. and sometimes near family and friends, and sometimes far. And we would make the trek, and sometimes there's an RV park nearby, and that's great. You can just make your reservation there and camp like usual, and make the day trip into the visiting friends and family.
Mhm.
But sometimes you want to make your own RV available as a guest house, or you want to put your RV in the cousin's driveway or something. Allows you to do that. So my kind of first and foremost biggest tip is you probably want to check the local ordinances, maybe any kind of HOA regulations, restriction,
Oh.
community codes, things like that, and just make sure you're following applicable rules and guidelines. A lot of times there'll be an exception for a few days or a visit or just such a thing. It's usually pretty easily explainable. Yeah, cousin Eddie's just here in the driveway for Christmas.
And then, so once you've cleared that, and cousin Eddie is showing up here, and with their RV, we'll approach this from the aspect of your family or friends bringing their RV to your house. They're pulling up. What's kind of the first considerations we should be thinking about as we're starting to park Eddie's RV?
Yeah. So right away, having done this a couple times, you need to have your wits about you. Lots of times, this is where things can go wrong. Is right at the precipice here of failure. So let's set the scenario. Our longtime viewers always enjoy a good story. So there you are. Frazzled from holiday shopping, maybe, and worried about Thanksgiving dinner and whatnot. And you've had a long drive and you've finally arrived at the relative's house, or maybe they've just arrived in your driveway and everyone's excited, haven't seen each other in a while. That's great, but you need to kind of have your head in the game when it comes to parking because 2 or 3 things are happening all at once. Maybe you've got people unfamiliar with RVs, maybe kids running around, objects in the driveway, of course. You're going to be parking in an unfamiliar place, a place that's not normally had RVs, maybe. And so you've got considerations. Am I on the driveway? Am I on the grass? This little poured cement pad here, am I going to break it if I've got a big motorhome? How level is it? Be sure and watch for overhangs, kind of few personal war stories there. Gutters can stick out. You never think about it when you walk around your house. Oh yeah, that thing is 9 feet up. But for a 12-foot RV, that matters.
So I think your first point, and to reiterate it, is say hello to everybody, pet the dogs, relax for a few minutes, and then kind of clear out all of the extraneous busyness so you can focus on all of the aspects of parking the RV.
Yeah, exactly, John. Not to put too fine a point on it, but it might be a good idea to, yeah, get pets inside and kids inside and reluctant spouses to be able to help or not help to their preference. And once the initial excitement of the arrival is past, then maybe with a few more minutes and clear heads might be the best time to park.
And then take it slow and steady, because again, this is not an RV park where if you have a pull through site, you pretty much just pull in from the back, drive in, and it's all kind of the same thing over and over and over. When you're pulling into a house or driveway, one of your big concerns too, you mentioned gutters and height, but you also want to be aware of the width of your slide outs and what your slide outs
Mm.
could be hitting, right?
Yeah, great point. So, in a perfect world scenario, let's obviously get off the street safely and get out of the thoroughfare, and then kind of walk your route. Okay, we're gonna back in the driveway here. We're gonna pull through the yard there. Kind of plan your entrance, and talk to the homeowner, or maybe you're the homeowner. Talk to the RV owner. I've planned for you to park here. Does that work for you? And maybe you grab a tape measure, you step off and kind of rough estimate some hookups. Are we going to be hooking up to water and electric? Likely not any kind of sewer hookups. And are those connections going to reach? Is this going to be doable? And to your point, once we're there, do we plan to put the slide out? If we do, is it going to clear? Maybe there's a side alley or something where, yeah, we can get the slide, but then we can't walk past it. So measure and consider all the things we've talked about the class acronym before, CLASS. Whenever you're pulling into a website or a RV site, it's a good time to think about that. Of course, as a quick review, the
Remind us
C,
again. Yeah, what is
yeah,
class?
yeah,
The
there's
acronym
this.
class stands for?
The C is for connections. You want to make sure they're going to reach. You'd hate to park 2 or 3 inches short of what your power cord can connect to. The L is for leveling. You want to make sure wherever we park, are we relatively level? Can we get level? Are leveling jacks going to go into a pothole or on top of a curbstone or something? We're going to be able to clear there.
Right, right.
The A is for awnings. If and maybe not for the holiday weekend stay in the driveway, but if you're going to, make sure there's clearance if you plan to put out the awning. The first S is for the slides. Like we just mentioned, make sure there's clearance there that you can get your slides out if you need to. And then the last S is for steps. And older rigs that have the steps attached to the RV, maybe that's not a big deal. Of course, you want to make sure there's clearance and we're not stepping right into a pothole or a muddy spot or something. But for some of the newer rigs with the steps that hinge out of the door and go onto the ground, this is a little more important. Make sure, again, they're going to clear. They're not going to be half on the pavement, half off, things like that. So if you remember CLASS class, you're going to be able to kind of do a mental walkthrough and a dry run, check out, okay, I think I plan to be here in the driveway. I'm checking each of those boxes, and yeah, we all look good. Now we can back in.
All right. And then it's really important then to have a second or third set of eyes that are also fully concentrating on, getting the RV set up properly and safely and making sure everyone's communicating well and just taking your time. It's always a good idea when don't you agree? Like when you're putting your slides out, bump them out a little bit. Don't just run them all the way
Yeah.
100% the first time. Run them out, look, run them out, look. Just take your time because, again, you're probably in much tighter quarters than you usually have in your typical RV resort.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say this is going to be a little bit of a challenge in one of those areas. You're going to be tight quarters, like you mentioned, or you're going to be not level, or you're going to be a little bit further than you prefer. for some of your hookups, one of those three things is going to happen. And that's where being flexible and planning for comes into play.
So let's kind of jump ahead actually to maybe one of the last pieces here because I think it's one of the shortest answers before we get into some of the things that are maybe more critical for the holidays. But we have our water, our electricity, and we have our sewage. Typically, those are our hookups. Let's talk about sewage real fast. Whether you're using the rig, you're using the bathroom, most HOAs, most homes don't have a septic system that you can just plug right into with
Right.
your rhino hose. So, what do you recommend that we might do as part of our trip planning in terms of dealing with sewage if we're going to be using our toilets in the RVs? Because also many times, if we're with family, we might use their bathrooms for showers and everything else, and not use the RV facilities. But if we are and we need to dump out, what are some options there?
Yeah, great questions. And first and easiest choice, of course, is to just kind of put mooch docking, they call it, at a whole new level. So, hey, appreciate us being in the driveway. Do you mind if we use the guest bathroom? Yeah, that's of course the easiest. And maybe given the holiday season, Christmas every year is in December, for example, which is one of the colder months. So maybe you're already winterized. Things like that are definitely consideration. And you can mitigate a lot of issues. I've done this before with a winterized rig, and we just plan on dry camping. We're literally using it as a place to sleep and nothing else. Sometimes that's a good compromise. To your point, you're a bit of an imposition then on your host, but not tons. And not to tell the story too much from one side, maybe you're the host and some families coming into town, consider offering to them, hey, instead of trying to hook you up to water, let's just go ahead and make it an agreement that you're going to be able to use the guest bath or something while you're here. So that would be kind of my first choice. But let's say for whatever reason you'd like to or need to use your own facilities for a little bit. You're exactly right. Start out with as empty of tanks as possible. And I'm also going to go on a limb and say, just like you predicted there, 99% of the time you probably won't be able to dump at your remote parking site here unless they actually have an RV hookup.
Right.
So
Right.
so yeah, just plan on maybe hooking up a water hose for water input, but you're going to just survive on what you can hold in your holding tanks. And then there's a couple different options. We've kind of mentioned them in previous episodes, but remember, you can on your way home plan your route, plan the time for your itinerary, and make a dump on the way. So some people don't know that a lot of campgrounds will have a special rate, maybe a single charge or a day rate or some reduced amount that you can swing through. Just dump tanks and move on. You don't have to stay for the night. You don't have to buy a night kind of thing. So that's always an option. There are some pay for dump facilities, some of the bigger truck stops and commercial fuel stations and places like that. Sometimes you can pay just for a dump. And in a few of the states, as in the great state of Mississippi, there are actually public dump facilities at the rest stops.
Ah, very good. So it probably behooves us to do our research in advance. Looking for just go and do a search on the computer for RV dump stations located wherever you're going to be visiting. And I know in our neck of the woods, there are several Mavericks. Of course, Mavericks are everywhere, but
Mhm.
they have free dumps points, a couple in town here. And one of our RV parks in town, they charge $10. And you can pull in. They have the dump
Yeah.
station there just for pull throughs, and it also has water and stuff, so you can flush your tanks. And so plan ahead is kind of our main point here in thinking about using what you're going to be using for your toilet facilities mainly, and then how you can dump your tanks. So and that also touches into, water coming into the rig, our freshwater system. Pretty straightforward. It should be, wouldn't you think? Just coming in off of a, residential side of the house spigot into our RVs.
Yeah, exactly. You can usually hook up with a city water connection hose without too much problem. I would recommend still a pressure regulator, even the basic non-adjustable ones, just in case the neighborhood is high pressure, they have a pressure surge or something while you're there. You've got some protection there. You're covered. But since you're going to be likely conserving water and using the facilities very little, consider loading up your fresh tank and just running off what you've got. If you've got a decent capacity, it's always a good option. I don't think there'd be any problem with that, and maybe you can come up with a compromise, as in we're showering your house, but we're using facilities and our RV and things like that, and really extend your water stay. There's lots of different directions you can go.
I think people probably the biggest concern, and the same concern holds over too for RV parks, is checking your water pressure coming in.
Yeah.
And so either having a gauge so you can check it at the spigot, so you have an idea what pressure is coming right out of the house, let's say, before it comes into the rig. And then it's always a good idea to carry some sort of uh, of a valve, either the fixed. Typically, there are a 45 psi valve or an adjustable valve that you're always plugging in between your water inlet and the rig itself. But most residential, at least in our neck of the woods, most residential water pressure is far higher than you would want coming straight into your RV.
Yeah, great point. And we're going to have some holiday shopping wish
Yes.
lists, some gift lists, and we'll include the regulators we're talking about in there.
All right. So we've kind of dealt with our leaving and going home toilet issues, how we're going to clean things out.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
we've 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 talked about water coming in, whether we're going to need it or not. But probably the single biggest difference in terms of that will impact us the whole time we're there, plugged into our uncle's house, is electricity.
Hmm.
If you're lucky, if you're very lucky, maybe you have a 50 or 30 amp hookup because you own an RV and here's someone else coming and either staying in your RV or their RV is going to plug into your 30 or 50 amp service. In that case, I think pretty much most of our audience kind of knows what to handle. But more often than not, we're probably not going to have that 30 or 50 amp service at someone's home. Correct?
Yeah, yeah, great point. And here's another case of a little bit of electrical knowledge can really carry you a long ways. So, exactly. Well, starting at the top here with some options and choices, you could potentially run just the minimum things you need. For example, maybe lights or a fan for a few minutes, LED lights, things like that, just off your battery supply, short stay, not much use. That's always an acceptable option. You probably are not going to be in such a neighborhood that's going to allow a generator to be run for a lot of hours. So that's a consideration, but probably not a likely course of action. So we're probably going to be plugging in some manner. And you're exactly right. If they have a 50 amp or a 30 amp hookup, then plug in, use your surge suppressor, just like an RV park. You should be good to go. However, much more likely is maybe they don't have that sort of connection or a tenuous connection. We'll call it that way. So let me again paint the scenario. Let's say you pull up to a relative's driveway and they say, "Oh man, that's a 50 amp rig." Well, yeah, I got this big 50 amp right here. Let me just unplug the dryer real quick, and you can plug into that. We won't be using the dryer while you're here.
No,
Yeah,
don't do it.
don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yes, there are some 30 and 50 amp dryer plugs which may look the same, but they traditionally are 240 volts, and so you don't want to plug any 120 volt RV in. You're going to cause massive electrical damage.
Massive,
Yeah.
massive electrical damage.
So
Absolutely.
I can share the war story, John, that before I was an RV tech, I actually am telling the learn from my mistakes story here. Luckily, just blew a bunch of fuses and a cheap television.
Oh,
But yeah, beware. Definitely
Beware.
don't want to do that. I've also seen much bigger issues than that. So your safest and best course of action, of course, our readers are going to have a multimeter and are going to be able to check for themselves and kind of confirm voltage. But let's say you've done that, and the more likely scenario here is, yeah, I've got this external plug on the outside of the house. It's probably a 15 or 20 amp traditional three-prong
There
plug,
we go.
like we're
Yep.
used to in the U.S. So your key there is going to be to plug in, and then through a series of adapters. If you have a 30 amp rig, a 20 to 15 or 20 amp adapter to your 30 amp rig, or you may have to go a combination of that and then 30 amp to 50 amp for your 50 amp rig. So that's fine. You can use those adapters you can plug in. What you need to remember though is your 50 amp motorhome then is not got 50 amps available for its use. You're plugged into a 20 at best, but more likely a 15 amp circuit. And so you're going to want to minimize your electrical draw. You just don't have that many amps to work with. And so you're not going to be able to run both air conditioners at once and heavy loads like that.
So let's just consider a 50 amp rig, two air conditioners, a furnace. Now, if they're in your neck of the woods on Christmas Day, they might need their air conditioning.
It is always possible.
But if you're just plugged into a single 15 amp outlet, you're probably not going to have much joy for your air conditioners. It
Okay.
would help if you have an easy start or soft start installed. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But I see where you're going with your point here. You're probably going to want to just go ahead and rule out your either or both air conditioners, and any kind of heating that is resistance based heating, in other words, electrical heating. It's probably going to be on the very lowest setting, if at all.
Yep.
So what you're really safe with is saying, okay, I'm only plugging in for basically two good reasons. And that's to keep my batteries charged and to be able to run a few lights here and there. Uh,
And what about a furnace?
yeah, so on a furnace, excellent question, and I'll probably switch the interview here and put in your seat. Um, where does the majority of the BTUs of heat from a gas furnace come from, John?
Well, from the gas.
Okay. So in other words, if you've got a gas furnace, you can plug into a 15 amp and
You're going to
heat
be
your rig
just
with it.
fine.
Yeah,
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 you're going to be just fine. Yeah. Yep, because it's really all that's in terms of, electricity that's going into your domestic or suburban RV furnace is 12 volts. So as you mentioned, you want to keep your batteries charged. The main benefit of being plugged into a 15 or 20 amp outlet. But yeah, your furnace should be fine. And so in our neck of the woods or somewhere in between where you want to stay warm, being warm will probably be the easiest of the luxuries to give yourself while you're in your RV. In this scenario, being plugged into a 15 or 20 amp rig. Air conditioners, maybe a small rig with one air conditioner. If it has a easy start or a soft start installed, I think you might have some good
right.
good luck there. No worries, but you're probably not going to be powering a whole lot of things like a microwave or a coffee pot, hair dryers, things like
Electric
that.
water heater.
Electric water heater, yes, good point. Electric
Yeah.
water heater. Go to gas, turn on the propane, use some propane. But understand the limitations of that 15 or 20 amp outlet that you have coming in.
Yeah, exactly. And the one plug I like to remind my customers, especially in the South, if you've never, or it's been many years since you've heated your RV for an entire night with nothing but propane heat, in other words, no electrical supplementing here, you might be surprised by the volume of propane you use. And again, John, you've got more experience than I, but you'll want to arrive with full tanks because you will use up some propane.
Yes, you will. And also remember, all these things that, when we're talking about visiting family and using an RV in the driveway in the midst of the holidays, keep in mind a lot of things close down or have reduced hours during the
Yeah.
holidays. So that's another factor that can kind of be a bugaboo during the holidays. So, what are
Yeah,
some final points that we might have in terms of think of these things through about using RVs in our driveways?
yeah, I think we don't mean to paint too bleak of a picture here. Lots of things we've gone over this episode, lots of considerations, but we've taken kind of a worst case scenario to each approach. More likely, go forth and have a great time. You're going to enjoy the experience. It's going to be great to be able to visit with family. It's going to be even greater, maybe, to be able to escape to your own bed at night and say, "Hey, we'll see you guys again in the morning." That makes the 4 or 5 day visit very cordial, I think, for everyone. Much longer than that, and you have more considerations to have to go over, but much less than that, and it's even easier. So the bottom line is get a well parked in a nice, safe, relatively level space with room around you. Get a basic electrical hookup that you're comfortable with. A nice 15, 20 amp should be fine. Don't expect a whole lot more other than charging batteries, charging a cell phone, and running some lights. And if you can not mind Cousin Eddie taking a shower in the guest bathroom, then you mitigate and sidestep a lot of the other potential issues. And then go and enjoy your trip. And be pleased to know that in a big motorhome, there's lots of room for Christmas presents in the basement
Ah,
storage.
there you go. There you go. And I'll also throw out, if you're in a cold but not really cold environment, you know, if you're primarily a summertime user of your RV, you probably don't carry a whole lot of extra blankets. Maybe you don't have flannel sheets. You have cotton sheets on during the summer. But flannel sheets and an extra blanket or two on the bed can make a big difference too. It might negate even having to use your furnace or reduce the amount of propane that you're using. So think about clothing as a way to extend your low end temperature comfort in your rig too, that is not dependent upon any of your RV systems.
Yeah, great point, John. And just kind of a general, in that vein, general survivalist mantra. It's easier to heat the person than heat the room or heat the area, kind of thing. So yeah,
Yep.
warm pajamas, good thick sheets, and I'd even go out on a limb and say, hey, you're in an RV, you've got some luxuries here. Go ahead and get that electric blanket. Though it's resistance heating, generally they're a low amperage, and maybe the air temperature doesn't need to be quite as warm then when you've got a nice electric blanket on you, and that is going to be more efficient overall for keeping you warm.
Oh, there you go. And you can always get your dog under the covers with you and have them help you warm up too. So
It may or may not be a 3 dog night. I think
uh,
some of our viewers are old enough to get that one.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you, Joe. Any final comments here before we wrap things up?
No, thanks, John. I appreciate viewers. I wanted to give John the credit for coming up with this idea and kind of pushing it forward since we were kicking it around. I've had 2 or 3 customers this past week tell me, "Oh yeah, thanks for getting my rig together. I'm going to be heading up north to visit friends or family or the kids or something for the holidays." And I was able to tell them, "Oh, I've got an episode coming out just on that." So very timely.
Well, there we go. Well, if you have any questions about your rig or about anything related to RV lifestyle, you can always send us your questions. Our email is contact us at smart-rv.com. And we'll see you in our next episode. Joe, always a pleasure. And to all of our followers, safe travels. Subscribe, like, share our podcast, and we wish you all happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Thanks, everyone. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. So long.